All right, so next up is logical operators. So basically, we can use arithmetic operators together with comparison operators and logical operators to write some pretty advanced code or advanced logic within our application to have it do some pretty cool things. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to scroll right back up to our main method again. And in our main method, I'm going to write another method call called logical operators and close that out. And then I'm going to copy the name again. Let's make sure it's copied. Let's go down to the very bottom of the file and let's specify or create a new method called logical operators. So basically with logical operators, there are many of them that can be used to specify whether we want to check for two or more conditions to be true or false, or if we only want one of them to be true or false. And I'll show you guys exactly what I mean with that. So basically what I want to do here is I want to be able to specify whether two operands are true together or if only one of them is true. And I'll kind of explain more about it as I go along here. But let's just start off by defining some variables. So let's say that the first variable is a Boolean data type, and we'll call it X, and we'll set that to true. And then we'll create another one called Y and set that to false. And this is going to be the best way to help you guys understand exactly what I mean. So we would use, for example, if we want to check that two operators are creating a condition that is equal to true, we would use the AND logical operator, and it's written like this. So let's create another variable called AND result, and that is going to be equal to X and Y. So basically what this is saying is if X is equal to true and Y is equal to true, then the entire condition is true. And as you can see, this is how you can start to build some very complex logic. So let's console.writeLine this. Can you guess what the result is going to be in this case? So let's go ahead and run this. And as you can see, we get a result of false. Now, why is it false? Well, going back up here to where we declared and initialize these variables, X is equal to true and Y is equal to false. But down here, we're betting on basically X being true and Y being true. But in this case, because Y is false, then that means that the entire condition is now rendering to false because X is true, but Y is false. I hope that makes sense. So basically, both conditions must equal true, not necessarily true the value, but they must pretty much evaluate to true in order for the entire result to be true. So let's do this with another example. Let's create a situation where only one of them needs to be true. So we're going to call this bool or result. And we're going to say if X or Y, and or is represented by a double pipe character. So if X or Y, then it's basically going to evaluate to either true or false. So let's console.writeLine this. We're going to output or result. Now, based on this, we expect to get back a true, and the reason why we did get back true is because X is equal to true. Y is equal to false. So what happened here? Let me explain why this works. As I said before, this logical operator is a double pipe which symbolizes or. An or condition, either this or that is true. In this case, X was the very first thing that was encountered here or that was executed, which evaluated to true. There's a concept called short-circuiting, and basically in computer programming, a short-circuited language like C# will stop evaluating a condition as soon as they find the very first condition in the evaluation that's true. So in this case, X is true, so then the code stopped pretty much evaluating this entire statement once it found that X was true. If Y were first and then X were second, then Y, obviously with it being false, this would evaluate to false, so then it would run X as the second parameter and check if X is true. And then in that case, the entire statement would evaluate to true in that case. So either way, it would be true. It's just a matter of which one is being put first, and if we're short-circuiting, out of this evaluation. So hopefully that makes sense. You might want to read up on that online if it doesn't, or maybe just kind of rewatch this several times until it does make sense. Let's move on. So let's say that we want to negate a circumstance. I'm going to give you two scenarios here so you can hopefully understand a little bit more about the and result part as well. But if you want to check for the exact opposite, we can use a not operator, which is just an exclamation mark. So let's go ahead and define bool and call this not result 1. And we're going to set this to basically what we see above with the and result, if x and y. But instead, this time we're going to say if x and not y. And the reason why we're doing that is because of this. We want this to evaluate to true in this case, just as an example. So we already know that x is true and y is false as said above. But because I'm specifying this exclamation mark in front of the y, then we're basically saying if not false, which is basically true. So now with that being specified, we're basically expecting this to evaluate to true. So let's output this as console.writeLine, and we're going to say not result 1. And let's run this. And as you can see, it evaluated to true. And the reason why, again, is because x is true. And in this situation, y is normally false. But because we're putting this exclamation mark in front of it, we're basically inverting it to true. So true and true is equal to true. So that's basically how that works. Let me give you another scenario. Let's say, for example, I want to just invert x on its own. And as we already know, x is currently true. So now I can say bool not result 2 is equal to not x. So we're basically just inverting x. So the inversion of a true value is a false value. So that's what we're expecting to see. So if I console.writeLine this, and I just say not result 2, what do we get? Let's run that. And basically we get false because the inversion or the opposite of a true is a false. And being that x is true, the opposite of true is false. So x is now false, or not result 2 rather is false. So that's basically logical, the first set of logical operators that you definitely need to know more about. And again, you would use this generally together with other logic such as flow statements or control flows like if, else, which we'll get to in a little bit. You use this together in conjunction to be able to evaluate or set conditions and so forth.